So how many times have you gone out in the water in the pre-spawn when everybody is allegedly catching them around you? Your phone's blowing up, you got buddies texting you the whole day saying they're absolutely hammering fish, but it seems like you can't get a bite. Today what I want to talk about is where you're messing up when you're fishing this time of year when that water temperature is in that 48 to 54 degree range. And what this is going to do is it's going to help you catch more fish this time of year. So we're going to get on a map and I'm going to show you how to catch more fish. So the pre-spawn is a time of year where fish are constantly moving. You have different waves of fish coming in, you have waves of fish coming out, and you have these different groups of fish pushing all around different areas. And what that makes is for a moving target, which is really, really difficult because it changes from day to day. And what I see a lot of times, and what I used to do a lot, was I would catch myself trying to run spots, which is what we all like to do, right? You look at a map and you go, this spot looks good, I'm gonna go run this spot, and then you go, okay, where do you wanna go next? Well, this spot looks good, let's go run this spot. And in the pre-spawn, that can work, but it's almost like playing Russian roulette with spots. And so what you end up doing is, if you go into a creek right now, we're in Browns Creek on Guntersville, one of the most famous creeks literally ever. If you were to just say, okay, I'm gonna run this spot in Browns Creek, and then I'm gonna go up here to Spring Creek, and I'm gonna run this spot, and then I'm gonna run this spot, and I'm gonna run this spot, well, you're just trying to run into a group of fish in a creek. As opposed to looking at a map and going, okay, there's a big group of fish somewhere in this area. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start at the mouth, I'm gonna start main lake, and work my way back. Because then what you're doing is you're trying to find that group of fish, versus if you go from different area of the lake to different area, fish set up differently. You know, in Browns Creek, they might not be in the same spot that they are in Spring Creek, just one creek over. You know, on your lake, you might run one area of the lake, and they might be in a completely different stage than they are in the other end of the lake. They might just be a little bit off. So if you find yourself running those types of spots, what you're gonna do is you're gonna burn yourself out because you're gonna be running around, you're wasting time not fishing. And then what you're doing is you're trying to hit a moving target that might not be in any similar position anywhere else you're going. And so what the best thing that I've found to do is look at a map and say, okay, this is a really popular area. This is a big area. What I'm gonna do is, like I said, I'm gonna start at the mouth of the creek and work my way back, given the conditions that we have. If it's been cold the last couple of days, I'm gonna start closer to the main lake. I'm gonna start closer to deep water and try to work those types of areas and then work my way in shallower. If it's been warm, like today, we've had 2 really hot days the last 2 days in a row, maybe I'll start further back and work my way out and try to intercept those fish. And that way what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna save gas money by not burning a lot of water or gas. I'm gonna save time because I'm gonna be fishing more. And I have a better chance because if I stay in this area, chances are if I fish around, sooner or later, I'm gonna run into those fish. I'm gonna find that group of fish somewhere along their transition route, because that's what this time of year is all about. It's about figuring out that transition route. Again, people run spots. They don't think about it on a route because those fish have a goal in mind. Those fish are coming in to spawn and then they're gonna leave. And so what they do is they stop on key areas as they're working their way through. And if you look at a map, a lot of times you can go, well, this is a pretty clear starting area. This is a pretty clear stopping area. Like, you can see the contour lines as they change and understand why those fish are going to stop there. Because you constantly have to be asking yourself, why would this fish want to stop here? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at a map of Browns Creek or Spring Creek, whichever, and I'm gonna show you kind of some of the stopping areas that I would see and things that I would want to check out to kind of where I'm gonna start versus where I'm gonna end up going through the motions of trying to figure out where these fish are along their route. And so one thing you want to note is earlier in this pre-spawn, fish are going to be out here closer to the main lake. This is the main river channel right here. So fish are going to want to set up closer to the main river channel or this river channel that comes in, because that's what they're going to use as their funnel route. And so fish start out here, start closer to the main lake. They want to make their way back into some of these spawning areas back in further. They might not necessarily go all the way up into here, but they're going to want to get somewhere into this region right here because they want to spawn and they want to get out of the main current in order to do that. And one thing you have to note is if you go into these bigger creeks, it's going to be harder to hit that target. Because as you're moving through there, what you have to think about is the area that you're running into. That's a bigger area than necessarily this area over here. So this is Seabolt Creek. This is probably one of the most popular areas on Gunnersville, right? And you'll notice I don't even fish up here that much. And so again, main river right here, and you can see these green arrows, that's the travel route these fish are gonna wanna take because that's the deep water. Now, what they're gonna use is they're gonna use things like grass edges, and they're gonna use contours of the lake to travel back into these areas back in here, because this is ultimately where those fish are going to end up spawning for the most part. You might find some fish spawning on these islands, but for the majority, these fish are going to get back in these pockets because that's where they feel most comfortable, and that's where they are out of the conditions. And so what you want to do is, we're kind of zoomed in right here. Hopefully you guys can see that pretty good. Let me move my arm. Is as these fish are coming in, they're going to stop on key areas. And it might be areas like this point right here, because as they're coming in, that's a great stopping area. You can see they're gonna come in and they're gonna try to stop on all these little key areas. As they're moving in, this is gonna be the first place they're probably gonna stop. Points like this that set up close to that deep water. And then as it warms up, they'll continue to make their way back, stopping on things like this island, because you can see as they're coming in, you know, you have this point right here, you have this point right here, this point right here, and they'll just travel along this route. And so what you have to do is you have to figure out where at they are on that specific route. And you'll notice that's why I'm talking about, if you're running from creek to creek, they might not be in the same area spawn wise they are here as they are over here, because they set up completely different. Even if you're to go up the lake or down the lake, it might be in a completely different section. So what I would do is, when I first get here, if the water temp is in that closer to the 40s than it is, or, you know, closer to the 50 than it is to 60, I'm gonna start out more here. Versus the closer it gets to 60, I'm gonna be further and further back. But the one thing that I always try to keep in mind is, I always try to start closer to this deep water. That's gonna be key to me, because that's something that those fish can come up easy and get away from easy. So I'll start out here, and then I'll just work my way in. I might idle this entire creek right here along all of these stopping points to find the key little areas. Because if I spend my time right here, I know there's a group of fish right here, and there's probably a winning group of fish somewhere in this general vicinity. And if I stick around here, I'll run into it sooner or later, trying different things and figuring out where those fish are at. Now, one thing that you can do to try to shortcut this process is start in smaller creeks like this. Or even if you were to come up here, try to find like this creek right here, smaller creek. What you can do is start in something smaller like this, because it's gonna be easier to figure out where those fish are at. You can start out here on the main lake and work your way into that creek in a lot shorter amount of time than you can in some of those bigger creeks. So that's a good way to break it down. You know, you have this main river bar right here. If they're more out on that main river bar, now you can take that everywhere else and try to go, okay, well, I know they're more main river than they are all the way back into some of these pockets. And so taking that into consideration is gonna help you break that water down so much faster. But that's what I wanna talk about, is spending time in these creeks as opposed to just running around trying spot to spot to spot. So if I can leave you with one thing, it's understand that this time of year, it's not just fishing spots, it's about figuring out the travel routes that those fish are on and where they're at in that process. Because if you can start to understand that process and think about the weather conditions more, it'll help you figure out how to catch these fish continually, because just because you caught them in this spot today doesn't mean they're gonna be there tomorrow. They're constantly gonna be moving. But knowing that, okay, they stopped on that spot, maybe they'll hit that spot later. So after the spawn is over, they're probably gonna come back out to that. And so understanding that is gonna help you catch fish more and catch fish faster. Because if you can continually judge, okay, it's sunny, it's been hot, these fish are gonna wanna keep moving, you'll run into more fish based on the conditions. But spend more time fishing in certain areas than you are just running around the lake. It'll save you a lot of time, and it'll help you catch a ton more fish. And one of the best baits to do that is gonna be a lipless crankbait, and some of the best baits for the pre-spawn I will have linked up here in a video that I don't think you're gonna wanna miss, because it'll help you know the baits to throw this time of year that are gonna help you run into more fish and bigger fish. So keep those in mind. Be sure to check that video out. But thank you guys so much for watching. God bless, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.